Patrick Mahomes is already one of the great quarterbacks ever. Travis Kelce is one of the great tight ends ever, at least, if he's not the greatest. So usually, and by the way, their GM, Veach, is really good. He's had the job since a year before, since Mahomes' rookie season. Mm-hmm. Like, so when you have a front office and you have a coach and you have a quarterback and you have his primary target all on that level, you make the Super Bowl 3 out of 4 seasons, apparently. Look, here's the question. Are they a dynasty? Are they a dynasty? What do we call a dynasty nowadays in football, in the NFL? Where the standards, I think, are a little different in every sport. But what's a dynasty in the NFL, Key?
Well, I would probably say 3. You have to have at least 3 Super Bowl wins in probably a 5, 6, 7-year period with that core group together, meaning that the quarterback, the head coach, 1 or 2 players on the defensive, offensive side of the ball. You need at least 5 or 6 guys that have won those Super Bowls with you along the way. That's the way that I view a dynasty.
See, I think they're a dynasty. I mean, you get to 5 AFC championship games. That's the elite of the elite, right? Other than getting to a Super Bowl. You get to 3 Super Bowl appearances. You win 2 of them. Your quarterback is a 2-time MVP. He's a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. You have a Hall of Fame coach, maybe one of the top 5 greatest coaches of all time. You're drafting at a very high clip. And for me, like when I look at dynasty, like that to me is it's the start of a dynasty, right? It's the beginning of a dynasty. It doesn't mean that the dynasty's over, but it's starting.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Jay. That's why I said they're not there yet. One more Super Bowl win. They're it's farming. It's right there. They've won with this core group. They've already won 2. This core group can get another, then they will become a dynasty. You can't, when you think about the dynasties, the Dallas Cowboys, that's a dynasty. Okay, they won with the core group. The San Francisco 49ers was a dynasty. They won with the core group of those individual players.
Yeah. Like the Cowboys won 3, the Niners won. You're talking about groups that won at least 3.
Yeah. That are together, core group of guys.
I have a slightly lower standard than that, Key. I appreciate that standard. I think those are like the greatest dynasties ever.
Agreed.
But I think in the NFL,
how is it the greatest dynasty ever?
Because you can have different levels of dynasties.
The greatest, like
you can have lower tier dynasties.
This is how I would define dynasty.
End.
I would say if the quarterback and coach, especially, there are other ways too, but certainly if you're the same quarterback and the same coach, and you go in 5 years, you are usually, more often than not, in your championship game, and you've won a couple Super Bowls, that is a dynasty to me. There's continuity at the highest level in the organization on the field, and you are the dominant team in your conference, and you've mixed in Super Bowl wins. The Chiefs have done all those things. I think that's a dynasty. And here's the other thing. There's no break.
Is the Pittsburgh
There's
Steelers
been no
with Ben
break.
Roethlisberger a dynasty?
No.
Well, you just described what they did.
Yes, but there was another team in the conference. Okay, here's another. You have to be the best team in the conference over that period of time.
You probably will be the best team in the conference over a period of time if you have a dynasty.
Yes, in your conference at least.
Yeah.
You probably will be.
Yes, I
yeah,
think
but the Spurs won in 9-9, then lost in the first round of the playoffs the next 2 years.
Well,
and not only that, the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants was trading off winning Super Bowls in the conference.
I think you can have more than one dynasty existing simultaneously.
Y'all driving me crazy with
Why not?
this.
Well, I think
because y'all keep keep moving.
Yeah, we're defining it as we're thinking about it.
Moving.
But Key,
the standards of what a dynasty
No, we're not
is.
moving it. We're refining the definition.
You can have 2 people in the Hall of Fame, and you can look at one and look at the other, and be like, all right, they're drastically
well,
different.
he just said you have to be. He just said you have to be the best team in your conference.
Well,
that's what he just said.
With Max's rules. Those are.
Well,
Max's
do you
rules.
think that you don't have to have
that's
the
what he
best
just
team in
said,
your
and I
conference?
brought up. And then, okay,
he brought
the
up
best
Pittsburgh.
team.
That's why I don't think of him that way.
I know I brought up Pittsburgh, Max. Then you said you have to be the best team in the conference, and there was other teams within that conference, which you probably think in New England. But at the same time, I flipped the script on you and said, hey, you still had San Francisco, the New York Giants, and the Dallas Cowboys basically rotating those years of who goes to the Super Bowl.
Well, I would say the Giants were not a dynasty then. The Niners were the dynasty of that era. Right, the Niners won 3. More. They won 5 if you count all the Montana and young Super Bowls.
You can't be a dynasty like for instance, the Philadelphia Eagles under Andy Reid went to 4 NFC Championship games and finally got to the Super Bowl. Didn't win the Super Bowl, but they went to championship games.
But Key, now expand that by a year. Wait a minute. Expand that by a year. If McNabb and Reid go to 5 and win 2 Super Bowls, I would look back at that 5-year period as a dynasty. But more than that, we are not anticipating that Mahomes and Reid are going to suddenly not make the playoffs, right?
No, I think they're going to win another Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years.
And if they do that, then in your book, they're a dynasty. And I'm not really arguing against that. What I'm saying is my standards are slightly lower than that. I think once you put 2 Super Bowls together with an unbroken streak of dominance in terms of at least making the championship game, I'm satisfied that's at least a mini dynasty.
So let me ask you this then, if that's the question then, Coach. Is the Denver Broncos under Shanahan a dynasty with John Elway and Terrell Davis, and they won 2 back-to-backs, and that was pretty much it?
No. That was at the very end of Elway's career. Could have been.
But
if Elway would have played a couple more years and they would have made another championship game, then I would say yes. But they won twice at the very end. But like that's as close as you can come, in my opinion.
Is it to the fact that when we hear the word dynasty, we think of things in threes? Like the number 3 always pops up with dynasties. Is that what we need to really cement what a dynasty is? Because this is the way we've been pre-programmed to think of dynasties. When dynasties can be, it could be 2.
Because a lot of back-to-back champions are dynastic.
Dynastic.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is when you have gone and won. I don't care if you, like I said, if you win, you go to a championship game and you lose. Then you lose again, then you win, and then you lose, and then you lose, and you win. But it's that core group. Like the New England Patriots was they had 2 dynasties. They had 2. When you look at it,
it's fair to say.
For a long period of time, I'm only talking about the quarterback, the head coach, 2 players on defense.
If you lose the details, if you lose the details, it's deceptive. It looks like one long dynasty with Belichick and Brady. And I think it's actually fair to look at it that way, but it's also fair to say, wait a minute, there was a long stretch where they didn't win any Super Bowls, and it was a new group of players that started winning the Super Bowl again. It's actually, I think both ways of looking at it in this case are valid.
There was 2 dynasties for the New England Patriots.
Because we're asking, are the Kansas City Chiefs a dynasty? You started out by saying you need one of your criterion is that you need 3 championships, right?
Yes.
So, and I said, I think that's fine. It's reasonable, but my standard is a little lower if you have 2 and you have these. And then a caller called up and said, because you had mentioned actually the Patriots with Brady as 2 different dynasties. With Brady and Belichick, they had 2 separate dynasties. And a caller called up and said, basically his larger point was you just take a step back and tell the story of the league, right? In the 80s, who was the dynasty? It was the Niners. They won the most. They were always making deep runs. Then in the 90s, it was the Cowboys, same thing. Then in the 2000s, it was the Patriots, right? It's been the Patriots since then. Before that, before the Niners, it was the Steelers in the 70s. And I realized one thing about that. They all won 3. So I think I'm coming around to saying you need 3, and that Kansas City is not quite there yet.
I'm so glad you came to that conclusion.
They need to get one over the next. And the reason I say 3, because one over the next 3 years. The reason I say that is because I don't know if Andy Reid is still going to want to coach in the next 2 to 3 years. Like, you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if
there needs
Kelsey
to be
wakes up one day and says,
continuity.
Huh?
There needs to be continuity, in other words. Yeah, I agree.
Because Kelsey may say, Kelsey's brother may retire, and then Kelsey may say, man, I don't want to play either. So we're going to go and do this. So you just don't know.
I hear you on the – so if Andy Reid retires and next year they don't do it and the year after that they win it, that doesn't count? Because there's not continuity with Andy Reid?
But he's such an important part of – he's such a major ingredient into everything that if you – remove him from the equation, it almost feels like, oh my God, what's going to happen? This isn't
Patrick Mahomes' reign, though.
No, I understand. I understand. I get it. The 49ers did it with Bill Walsh left, and then all of a sudden George Seifert came and they went and won a Super Bowl. I understand that. The Cowboys did it with Barry Switzer, even though Troy, Emmett, and Michael, and Dion, and Haley, and all them were the real coaches.
Yeah.
They were the real coaches, and they could have landed Max on the sideline and
was
probably
on that
could have
team.
gone undefeated.
I don't know.
You didn't know I was on that team.
Genes alone, Key.
The Chiefs alone. So,
But what I'm saying though is you just don't know. But for me, they need to get one over the next 3 years to do it because there's going to be major turnover in that time span through free agency, through players getting hurt, through players getting cut, all those sort of things.
Jay, I want this is interesting to me because you're like, hold on, let's pin it
don't
down.
tell me what you find
Let's pin it
interesting.
down and get. Why not?
No, go ahead.
Let's pin it down and
guys
get a
are like
definition,
Jekyll and
right?
Jekyll.
Don't be wishy-washy about it. But there is a gray area, and we're talking about the identity of a team, right? Like, what's the soul of the team? Things change over time. Is it still the same team? Is it still right? I think about, of course, everything comes back to the Yankees for me. They won in 2009, and Jeter was still on that team in Rivera. That was not the same. That was not part of the dynasty. The dynasty, the last one they had won was in 2000. Too many years passed in between to connect those two things. Even though, except for 1 year, they were in the playoffs every year.
So, but that's
not the same
That's
dynasty.
with the Spurs. So the Spurs won it in 14, 8 through 13. They didn't do. It wasn't. They didn't win anything.
Right.
So,
the
but people tack on the 14 to the Tim Duncan era, and they say, well, look at Tim Duncan's body of work over this time with Kawhi. Same gap, but you tack it on.
Same coach, same
It was the same gap. It was the same star. It was the same coach, though.
Yeah,
Fewer
but
players
and it was
on
a
his
couple.
team.
And it was a couple role
who's
players.
To the end, that was really Kawhi Leonard's team.
But Jay,
You know what I mean?
fewer players on the field in basketball, right? So when your coach,
it's a court.
Yeah, I'm saying field
Same
of
thing.
play. I mean field of play. The point is, your star is 20% of your starting unit, right? That's not the same thing in football or baseball. So Tim Duncan plus Greg Popovich plus never missing the playoffs kind of connects the whole thing, I think.
And plus, there's a couple role players that was hanging around. I mean, it just, the Spurs were a dynasty.
To the difference between the Bills, who went to 4 straight Super Bowls, didn't win one, Key says yes dynasty, and the Chiefs, 5 straight AFC championship games, 3 Super Bowl appearances, and 2 Super Bowl championships. Not a dynasty. Why, Key?
Well, here's how I look at it. You go to 4 Super Bowls, 4 straight, not 3 out of 5 years, and they're on their way. On top of that, even though they didn't win those, they've got 4 Hall of Famers off that team. Think about it. 4 and a couple that's still in the argument stages on whether or not they belong in the Hall of Fame. They got 4 guys, man. Jim Kelly, Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas, and Bruce Smith. There's 4. So
you think they're really good? I agree. The Bills, many of those years or several of those years, it felt like they were the best team in football. They just didn't win the game.
Yeah, wide left, wide right. It was weird circumstance that happened.
And over those 4 years, they were obviously the best team in football.
They ran
altogether.
up against a juggernaut of a young team with a playmaker.
So they were really, really good. I hear you. Why left? Why right? It seems like we're making slight excuses for them not winning, but we're not belittling and saying that they're not great. But not having your O-line in the Super Bowl, losing by 1 play to Joe Burrow in the AFC Championship game. Are we not saying that they're not great?
Key, you can't justify that as a dynasty and not a team that won 2 Super Bowls.
You're telling me about Joe Burrow. They didn't get there. I'm talking about 4 straight.
They went 3 out of
4 straight.
I hear you on the 4 straight.
Yes, I understand.
And the only reason it's not 4 out of 5 is because of a pre-snap penalty.
But we're not talking about the regular playoffs. We're talking about the Super Bowl. What is the first thing I said? They've got to win 3 Super Bowls. Okay, even though Buffalo won 0. Even though but Buffalo's not on the winning side of the dynasty. It's a weird correlation.
Wait, there's losing dynasties now?
Dude, they went
Key,
to 4
hold on.
straight.
I understand exactly your reasoning. I'm actually agreeing with you because I appreciate the elite level of talent. All I'm saying is you can't make it applicable to one and not make it applicable to the other.
Yeah, Key,
but I'm not making it applicable to Kansas City. The only thing I'm saying Kansas City has to do to solidify that is win 1 more.
No, but they are Key. I hear what you're saying, and I know what you mean about the Bills. But that's why I said earlier I already consider this Kansas City Chiefs team a dynasty, and then you talked me out of it.
I didn't talk you out of anything. You talked yourself out of it.
No, what I would say is this. There are, conference dynasties that never really got over the top as official NFL dynasties, right? I think of even a team like Seattle with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson for a period of years were the closest thing the NFC had to the Patriots. Would you consider that a little mini NFC dynasty, even if it's not a dynasty? And that's the Bills. Key, you can't say the Bills. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but it's hard to justify the Bills, who went to 4 straight but won none, over a team that went to 3 out of 5. Went to the conference championship every year and won 2 Super
But they've
Bowls.
only gone to 3. Win or lose. The Bills went to 4.
How much extra
In
does
a
it count?
row, though.
Please take
In
some
a
callers on this.
row.
I mean,